Welcome to this week's Plank of the Week with me, Mike Graham, on Talk Radio TV. And I'm delighted to introduce my two guests to you today. Emily Carver, who I think is fair to say is a conservative commentator, and of course Cristo, Talk Radio's very versatile presenter, who probably presented pretty much every show.
Everything.
I mean, you don't get to be on everything, but mostly you're an incredibly versatile man.
Well, sometimes I'm masked and I'm dropped.
Yes, that can happen.
As well. Yeah.
But, you know, that's showbiz.
Media is brutal.
It is brutal.
Very
Thank you very much for sparing the time to come and do Plank of the Week.
Quite welcome.
Emily, would you like to kick us off with your first nomination?
Oh, going straight in there. I am going for Zarah Sultana.
Right.
Who, if you don't know, is a Corbynista, Labour MP, also known as being the MP for Twitter.
Is she the wokest MP in the House of Commons?
She's probably the wokest MP on Twitter, yes.
I always think,
apart
you know,
from perhaps on Israel and other such matters that don't suit her narrative.
That's right. Well, do you know how there's a parody MP on Twitter who has a very similar sounding name, and I always confuse her with the parody one, not just because of the fact that their names sound the same, but because some of the stuff she tweets out you think is a joke, don't you?
Well, I think the same you could say with Dawn Butler.
Yeah.
And others of their ilk.
Yes.
Anyway, she's my Plank of the Week this week.
What has she done?
Because, I don't know if you remember, I think she was on one of probably like BBC Politics Live or one of those shows, and she was saying how unsafe she felt in the House of Commons because all the nasty Tory MPs weren't wearing masks.
Oh dear.
Scared. And she said she was scared.
She said she was frightened and scared and felt unsafe, and that it was, well, essentially selfish not to wear your mask in the Commons. OK, yes, fair enough, that's your view, you're allowed to say. But now she's been pictured out and about at awards ceremonies, cuddling up to colleagues and friends and, you know, peers and things.
Was she one of those at the Sadiq Khan DJ party up at the Labour Party conference? You know, when he was kind of pretending to be a DJ and they were all up sort of singing and everything?
Probably.
Yeah, nobody's wearing a mask.
Although maybe Sadiq Khan's too right-wing for her.
Could be, yeah.
Could be.
This was the Mobo Awards she was at. She was at the Mobo. She was down with the kids.
What is the Mobo
Awards? Or the Moby Awards, as I call them.
Black origin.
Oh, wow, OK.
Yeah. And it was moved to the glamorous location this year of Coventry.
Yes. Yeah. So maybe that's why they moved it there. Maybe she used her influence.
So, yeah, she talks about how we, you know, politicise masks, but I think she's guilty of that. So that's what makes her
Well, they
Plank.
all are, aren't they? I mean, all of the people who go on and on about how you should wear a mask at all times, almost every single one of them, without exception, has been caught at one time or another
just stop doing it.
not wearing one.
Well, this is why in the House, we're all now expected to wear masks at certain times, whereas in the House of Commons, as you will well know, they have said, well, actually, no, it's a personal choice.
Yeah.
It's a personal decision.
Yes.
Well, hang on. If it's a personal choice for them, why is it not a personal choice for us?
Yeah.
Why are they full of the usual rubbish?
Right. Well, I did notice, though, at last Prime Minister's Questions, even Jacob Rees-Mogg was wearing a mask because it was at the time when the front bench were trying to be a bit more kind of, you know, well, we told everybody else to, so we better do it. But there was plenty of backbench MPs behind them who weren't wearing them. But Jacob Rees-Mogg's mask was in Eton colours.
Well, you know it offends every fibre of his body wearing a mask,
yes,
don't you?
You can tell.
You know, he really doesn't want it.
And he defended the MPs. It was him that stood up and said, actually, it's down to personal.
Yeah.
Yes, right. And he would not wear one unless he was probably asked or
told.
ordered to do so by the whips, you know, because on the front bench, at the very least, they should probably try and look as if they're actually practising what they're preaching.
But don't you remember for a long time the MPs didn't have to wear them, but the researchers and the staff and the catering and the cleaners and everyone else.
Well, that's the thing.
Most
Most of these events that you go to and most of the kind of restaurants that I go to, you know, the only people wearing masks are the people who are serving you. So,
it's not.
You know, all of these kind of celebs and people who want to wear masks all the time, you always see them putting them on hurriedly before the cameras start going, you know, because they're not actually wearing them most of the time anyway.
Yeah.
You know.
It's all for show.
Theatre.
Wear a mask if you want to.
Yeah, that's what I say.
You know, I think
I don't mind if you want to wear one, but just don't tell me to wear one.
In some instances, it's quite kind to wear a mask towards other people, but that's your decision, and if you choose not to, I don't think
that's now.
shaming.
But isn't that interesting how that's
Mask
now the
shaming.
narrative, right? The narrative now is that it's not to save your own life; it's to save somebody else's life.
Yeah.
And you're kind of going, well, that's not what you said last time. Last time you said it was to save your own life.
But have you ever heard? I got on this thing the other day. It was begins with B. It was a big red thing in London. I'm not used to them. Bus.
A bus.
The bus. The bus.
Really?
And
there's an awful lot of them.
yeah, there's quite
In
a
fact,
lot of
there's
them,
too many
aren't they?
buses.
Yeah, too many. And but empty ones. But this one, have you heard the announcements that are constantly now played on there?
I have,
That,
yes.
You know, it's now mandatory.
I love that he's only just once
use
been on
the
a bus
bus.
and worked out that there are messages.
Believe it or not, I use the bus every day.
Do you?
Yes.
I came to
what's it
work today
like?
on the bus.
And they actually say on these announcements, it's there to protect us all.
Yeah.
And I hate her.
I
don't know
hate
who
her
she
so
is,
much.
but I hate
Also,
her.
I love it when the bus driver does it passive aggressively.
Yeah.
Like he won't tell you to put your mask on, but then he just puts his little recording on,
He's
gets
got
the little
control.
lady to do it
Because
when you're
the
not
thing
wearing.
is, before this latest incursion of you must wear it on public transport, they were still saying it before.
Yeah.
And the same people who weren't wearing a mask then are not wearing one now.
Yeah.
So it's not actually any different, in my view. People are not wearing a mask now when they weren't before. They haven't changed their minds.
No, well, a lot of people don't want to. I mean, I went on that thing that goes under the ground, that train that goes under the ground the other day, and the actual driver themselves said, you should be wearing a mask. They didn't have it. It wasn't an announcement. The driver himself said it. I'm actually exempt, but sometimes if it's very crowded, I might put it on.
But they can't
Sorry,
ask
these are
you,
the
though.
same tube drivers who have been striking over their 60-gram pay packets
Yes.
for
Oh,
driving in a straight
because
line.
they don't want to have to work 4 nights a year. It's a year.
They
right?
drive in a straight line. They're going to be automated.
You know what it involves being a tube driver, don't you? It's literally just doing that.
Well, they say,
And then doing that.
in their defence, right, they say that it can be quite traumatic, particularly if they run somebody over. But they don't do that very often.
But that's why they're well remunerated, because no one wants to do that job because it's miserable.
Well, they are underground for long periods of time. It's probably not that great of a job.
And they've got a great pay packet for it.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And they only do 30 hours a week, isn't it? And they get 6 weeks a year holiday, and they get free travel for themselves and
Listen, I'm not
their
defending
family.
them.
I mean, no wonder TfL
I'm not
bankrupt.
defending them going on strike, but I wouldn't do it, and neither would you, probably, would you?
I would if I
you?
needed work. If I needed a job, and I didn't realise there was this train that went under the ground, and now I
How
know
long have you
about
lived
it.
in
It's
London
quite
without knowing
amazing.
about the public
Just drive
transportation
everywhere.
system?
Just drive.
Have you heard of TfL?
Yes, I see the pleas that they have for money constantly. I mean, last week
Well, it's
it
not
was they were going to
surprising.
close a tube line.
Yeah.
This week now, did you see that Sadiq Khan was tweeting that without the money from the government now, we're all going to have nowhere to live?
Yeah.
London isn't going to have any housing. Next week, locusts.
No,
are
that's
coming.
right. Well, don't worry, you can live on the tubes when they all stop running.
Yeah.
And just, make
I've never
houses.
met a tube driver. I've
Really?
read about them, and they're odd
I remember the
apparently.
row
Odd
because
characters.
I'm old enough to remember the row because they used to have a guard on tube trains in the same way that they used to have one on, British Rail kind of overground trains. And the last carriage, there would be the guy, because I used to go to school on the tube, and there was a guy that would press all the buttons to shut the doors. And so when they did away with that, that was going to be the end of civilization. You'd think the unions were going, hang on a minute, you can't. It's not going to be safe. It's going to be too dangerous. You won't be able to run a tube train just with a driver.
That's why they love.
Don't be
wheeling out.
ridiculous.
I mean, it's a terrible.
And
thing
now,
that they do.
imagine if you saw some guy at the back pressing buttons, you'd be going, what's he doing?
Yeah, I'm a bit
You
worried.
know, you really-
But that would make women feel safer if they had a guard carriage and they made the front automated.
Yeah.
So the front drives itself, but then they put a guard on less money, and anyone could do that job as well. So if the guards went on strike, just grab anyone off the street, they could do that job, and then that would
Well, you
mean.
have a high level of technical competence, I'm afraid.
Well,
And they also used to have a.
Have you been on the DLR?
Yeah, I've been on the DLR.
That's the one that goes
You've been on that as well,
above.
have you?
Yeah,
Wow,
that
it's a
goes
real red
above.
I
letter
feel like
week.
this is getting niche.
It's a real letter week for Christo. Have you been on the boat? Do you know there's a boat as well?
There's a boat.
Yeah.
Where's the water?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
in between
yeah.
the two banks of
I
the
once had
river.
an apartment that overlooked that. I remember now. There is a bit of water in London.
All right.
Yeah.
Was that one of the? We're 10 minutes into the show already. We've only got one nomination.
I was thinking, are we still on?
I mean,
are we still
can
on
we
Zarah
move on?
Sultana?
All right, let's move
So,
on.
Zarah Sultana, who's your first nomination?
But I need to read what they had to say because this is actually so frustrating. Mine is Sir Jeremy Farrar.
Oh, yes.
Now, he is the director of the Wellcome Trust. He stepped down as a government scientific advisor last month, probably because he's living his life at a level of fear of Zarah Sultana. I'm amazed he's even left the house. Now, I know how much you love The Guardian and The Observer, you two. I know
I'm a
it's
big
on
fan.
your reading list every week.
Do you know,
I'm
I
not
never
sure.
read The Observer anymore. I just never read it. There's no point.
On Sunday morning, as I do my wonderful weekend breakfast show here on Talk Radio from 7 till 10 on a Saturday morning and a Sunday morning, obviously I read the front pages, and you'll have seen the front page of well, you two wouldn't, but you will have seen the front page of The Observer saying that the UK's progress on COVID has now been squandered.
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 Oh, yeah.
Any progress we've made on COVID has now been squandered. Why?
What, according to this bloke?
According to this bloke. Why? Not because of the Omicron variant,
No.
by the way. Not
No.
because of that one, because as we know, what we know so far about it is that it's quite mild. We don't know much else about it. But no, he says that the reason we've squandered is because of certain variants that don't exist yet.
Right. Well, he's probably
That's
not
helpful.
wrong. That's one of those great things that you could say without fear of being wrong. Because,
How can you squander something before it's happened?
Urgent action
well, it's
is
like the Brexit
needed.
debate, isn't it? It's all going to go horribly wrong. When? Well, sometime in the future.
No, but the Guardian.
And then we're going to say, "Told you."
The Guardian were also running with the next COVID. The next pandemic is going to be more lethal. It's like,
Yes.
is that helpful?
Well, we haven't got out of this one yet.
Yeah.
He says, whilst he was cautiously hopeful that current vaccines would protect against Omicron, so that's way down in the article, that might not be true for future variants.
No.
Well, I tell you what, can we
Might not
worry
be.
about them when they come along, please?
Well, I've got another reasonably important piece of information here for you. Only 30 to 35% of PCR tests for the general population are processed at labs able to detect a key indicator of Omicron. So they don't even know where to find it.
And how much there is out there.
No.
But if it's milder yet more infectious, it would actually end up being, dare I say it, I'm not a virologist, a good thing.
Yes.
Because more people will get it. More people will get natural
That's what they're worried about.
resistance.
That's what they're worried about. Because then they'll have to ease back on all the restrictions and actually return to normal. And that's the last thing Boris Johnson wants, because he's going to have to admit that all the other stuff that he's been trying to do is a complete and utter shambles and a failure.
Countries aren't going to report these variants
Also,
if it means that they're going to be blocked off from
Do we
the
not
rest of the
get new
world.
variants like every day?
Yeah, I mean...
That's what happens with viruses. I mean, does no one know that? Did they not know that?
No,
Even
they
I
all
know
know
that.
We've had something like 400,000 variants, something ridiculous like that.
But this is the Omicron.
And this is only the fourth one we've been bothered about. And this one apparently doesn't do anything.
Well, I've got Omicronic fatigue.
Very good.
Well, it makes a change from gout, I suppose.
Yeah, it does. And any other of my
Well, listen, we
health
can't
issues.
We can't go there.
I have gout, all right? I take a tablet for it every day. I thought, you only
That's
know
good
that
living.
because I told you for
Good living.
years.
I'm not the only one that knows. A lot
What
of
are
other
the
people
symptoms
know.
of gout?
Well, you get very, very bad legs and feet.
Very sore
But I'd
toes.
always get it after a really heavy night of drinking and dancing, so I always thought it was a dance-related injury. So I was going to the doctor saying, I was really dancing last night, now my feet hurt. He was like, oh, well, you're just dancing too much.
Can you not zap the crystals that form?
Well, I take a tablet now that does that. But it is very, very painful.
Uric
Sometimes
acid, I
would
think
be-
it is something to do
It
with
is uric acid.
Anyway, listen, this is Plank of the Week. It's not, Christo's medical hour, for heaven's sake.
Is it not Dr. Mike?
No, it's not. No,
That's a good
another
idea
show.
for a segment.
That's a different show.
Imagine him diagnosing people if they rang up. I'll just go out. I'll just forget it. Get over it. Yeah, but I've lost my arm. Just get over it. You'll be fine.
All right, like that guy in Italy who went in to get his arm jabbed with a fake arm. Did you see that?
He should be hero of the
I
week.
know. What an idiot, though. They went, that's not a real arm. He went, no, you're right. I mean, like, they wouldn't notice. For heaven's sake. Anyway, I'm going to do Sajid Javid because on Saturday evening, I was still going to America. And
to see your family?
Yeah, and everything was copacetic, as they say in New York, and it looked as though everything was going to be fine. We worked out a way of getting all the tests done and suddenly at 6 o'clock, without any warning whatsoever, I see a tweet from Sajid Javid saying, from 4 a.m. on Tuesday morning, everybody's going to have to get a pre-departure test from every single country in the world, apart from Ireland, apparently. I don't know why Ireland you have to do it. Anyway, so we're not going now because it's too complicated, it's too difficult, it's too risky, and he's caused...
I bet it's not cheap either.
Well, it's all of the testing regime, it turned out I was going to need something like 14 tests. Not me personally, but the family.
Your family.
And it was going to cost like an extra £1,000. Plus, if we had got pinged on the plane or in any way made to quarantine, but it cost thousands because you'd be in a hotel like you do here. And to which
And you
reminds
couldn't
me.
work.
And I can't work though because I wouldn't be able to go into an office to work because they wouldn't let me because I'd technically be quarantining, and I probably wouldn't be able to do a show from a hotel room in New York either because I wouldn't have any of the gear.
You're so important, though, they'd make it work.
They would have to.
Well, anyway.
What would he do without
Remember
you?
Julia in her
Mind
bedroom?
you, I might get that cover. So go.
Yeah,
Go. I mean, I think it's going to be all right.
But here's what they've also done. Because of all this mandatory hotel quarantining, right, in this
it's
country...
so grim. Have you seen the photos?
Oh, my
of
God.
the
Well, you
food
saw
and
Richard
stuff?
E. Grant, who was tweeting out at the weekend, eating this horrendous food, or probably not eating it, for 20 quid. Also, they're charging £200 a night for the quarantine in a hotel that only normally charges 60.
Yeah.
And I mean, you and I have probably spent some time in hotels in our lives, and you would never pay £60 for a hotel room because you would know it would be crap.
Well, totally.
Terrible.
I mean, I don't know why they're fighting diseases and then putting people in a £60
Well,
hotel
people
room.
isn't-
You'll leave with more than you
People
arrive
are telling
with.
me as well that some of these rooms are filthy because they can't clean them for some reason. I mean, there was one report of a guy who got into the room and somebody had slept in the bed. I mean, it wasn't even a clean bed. Can you imagine? Just horrendous. Anyway, so now they've run out of quarantine rooms around London. So they're now having to spend time ferrying people up and down the country, and they're actually splitting families up and making
Merry
them
Christmas.
sometimes 100 miles apart.
I think the quarantine
The
stuff is
quarantine
one of the
thing is
most...
mad.
unethical things.
Why can't you just quarantine where you are?
Yeah,
at home,
but this is the ridiculous thing. So
Well, that's
now,
the thing, yeah.
so now, if you manage to escape quarantine in America, you come back, you then have to quarantine, even though you've taken a test that shows that you're not positive, you then have to quarantine again, self-isolate until your test result comes through. The poor old Mark upstairs was there for a week because the test result didn't come through. And every time you told...
It's like a really bad
unbelievable.
Hollywood movie,
It's like
Escape
everything-
from Quarantine.
And if you're in Australia, you get chucked in the back of a van
in Australia,
and
they've got
taken
these
to an internment camp.
camps now.
They have lost their minds
I
in
mean,
Australia.
It's unbelievable.
mad.
And all four, I mean, when Sajid Javid was asked the question by Desmond Swain in the Commons yesterday, how many of the 236 or 336 people who've got this Omicron variant are actually in hospital? And he went rambling on for about 5 minutes and then ended up saying, none.
None.
No one. No one.
They don't
Zero.
know how bad it
Zero.
is yet. At the moment, it looks like it's not that bad.
I mean, where did you ever hear anyone say, well, we don't know how bad it is, so we better take precautions? Sorry? What? You know, we haven't come to a red light yet, so I'm just going to stop the car. Right? That's kind of what they're doing.
I mean, it's hardly...
There will
but
be
it
a
might
red
change.
light. There'll be a red light soon, so we better stop now because we won't be able to stop when we see the red light otherwise if it's too late. And you go, no, you stop when you see the red light, don't you?
I mean, it's hardly surprising that there are conspiracy theorists out there, is it?
The conspiracy
why
theorists
are the
now
government
sound
doing it?
more sane
Yeah.
than the government.
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, so how's your second one going?
The next one is the Ginger Prince of Planks.
Ah, yes.
The Ginger
The
Prince of
Herbert,
Planks.
formerly known as Prince Harry. as I
Someone
call
who
him.
one of your watchers said that I looked like, which was very kind.
Really?
Apparently I looked like
Really?
Prince Harry
You haven't
in
got
a wig.
beard.
Pardon?
He's got a beard.
He does have. I don't have a beard. Yes, there is that difference.
You've got a touch of the Eugenies about you.
a little bit, perhaps.
I don't know, or is it just the way you're
I'm
sitting?
saying nothing. I'm not allowed to say anything about that.
Anyway, why is he a plank? Well, did you know that he's Chief Impact Officer
Yes.
at a executive training
Yes.
company based in, San Francisco,
Yeah,
I believe.
that's right.
So that's very trendy.
And apparently, since he joined them, their share price went through the roof, and they're now worth $3 billion more than they were before.
So this is
But
what
nobody
people care
really knows.
about.
But nobody really knows what they do.
I mean,
And it-
Chief Impact Officer.
Well, quite. I think it's like, head of belonging. You could be head of belonging at ASOS,
Head of
the
belonging.
fashion
I
brand.
want to
What's
be
that
head
phrase they
of
use at
belonging.
Amazon? Fulfillment centres.
Oh,
Head
I
of
thought that was
fulfillment.
your house. You know.
Anyway, he had a bit of a.
if only. If only.
Why can't they just call it a warehouse? That's
Yeah.
what it is. But there will be several strikes outside fulfillment centres.
I mean,
What?
it's more the company that's the planks in that respect. But he's a plank because he had a bit of a Marie Antoinette moment, a let them eat cake moment, when
certainly
he
did.
suggested that people should just give up their jobs
Just
if
quit.
they find
Yeah,
them
just
stressful or if it's bad for their mental
it- if
health.
it
Mental health
brings
is
them-
suffering, just quit work.
If
Yeah.
it brings you
And I
no
mean-
joy.
Sure.
You know?
Sure, he's right in a way.
Right, well, it was really lovely seeing you both.
Bye.
This brings you joy.
I'm just fed off of
That's it.
planks. Anyway, no, yes, which I don't think is a great look when most people, working in menial jobs or just in most office-based jobs can't just, decide that tomorrow they won't
But
feed
I
their
get
children.
it now. That's why he's produced absolutely nothing for Netflix. He's just given up.
Yeah.
He's just not doing anything.
Well, he's not doing any content providing, is he? Which is what
Yeah.
he's been paid $100 million
It
a year
doesn't bring
for.
him joy.
No.
It doesn't. The money brings him
Right.
joy, but the work in exchange for
Well,
it
also, I
doesn't.
suppose it's quite easy to give up your job when you don't really have one. 'Cause,
Yeah,
I
when
mean,
you're
what
bankrolled
was-
by your father
and
all
also,
your life.
yeah, what was his job that he gave up? Apparently, was being part of the royal family. It's
He was
not
in the
really
army for a
job.
couple of years.
Yeah, but that's different. But I mean, who knows what he did when he was in the army? Some people give me a hard time and say, he was a hero, you're not, you shouldn't be having a go at him. But his job in the royal family was to not really do anything, was it?
Well,
What
he
was
had to
doing?
leave the army because I think he was, people had to protect him. He was a target.
Right.
So he wasn't suitable for that job. But yes.
Well, isn't
So-
everybody
But why
who's
is Spotify?
Excuse me, sorry. Isn't everyone who's in the army a target?
No, but
Technically,
even
they're in a
more
battle
so.
zone. They're in a battle zone. Oh, look, there's some troops. They're all
The fact
targets.
is royalty. It would be such
The
a
Taliban
win
don't
for
care.
The Taliban care about
they
them.
don't.
Of course
Yes,
they
do.
bloody
No,
care.
rubbish.
Of course
But
they
They're
anyway-
swearing on this show.
Anyway, I mean, this is slightly separate, but it's another reason why he's a plank. Why haven't they created any more Spotify podcasts since their first
Well, they're
one?
annoyed as well,
Is it because it's a
apparently.
car crash?
Well, apparently, because they don't know what else to say.
Is it-
All they can say, all they ever say is, "We're thinking of you. and we're caring and compassionate. And you go, fine. Okay,
No, they do
thanks.
list the reasons why their life is terrible and why everything's awful for them sometimes.
Right. It
Then
is bad. But also, it's quite easy, isn't it, to give up a job when you've got 30 million in the bank.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also another 4 million he got from his dad the previous year.
And the money from the Queen
Even though he
Mother as
claimed
well.
that he'd been cut off.
I mean, it's true. Wouldn't it be great if everyone could just leave their job and pursue their dreams? Firstly, some people don't really have that many aspirations.
No.
And two, some people don't have the luxury of being able to retrain if they've got mouths to feed.
Yeah.
And it's the job they can do.
Right.
So while it's an aspiration, and some people definitely have done it during the pandemic, and that's great, I mean,
And
coming
also,
from
a lot
Prince
of people
Harry,
work because they have to work.
Well, yes.
They don't particularly expect to enjoy the job that they do.
they don't get to do
Can
Netflix.
you imagine if you're sat there in a miserable job knowing that you've got bills to pay and the mortgage to pay and you've got screaming children and the advice you get from Prince Harry is just stop.
Just quit.
You let them starve.
Yeah.
Just don't feed them. Let the mortgage
Also,
go to
somebody
pot.
pointed
He said
out
they
to
should
me,
be celebrated.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Maybe they could start a foundation for the jobless, you know. But somebody tweeted me today about this and said, you know, it'd be great, wouldn't it, if you turn up to your next job interview and they say, why did you leave your last job? And you go, didn't bring me any joy.
Yes, he used the joy term.
You know, let's
said joy.
let's give this guy a go. Let's see how good he is at this job. Well, you wouldn't give a job to somebody like that, would you?
Halfway through, if you're a pilot flying a plane, just say, you know what, this is not bringing me joy.
don't fancy
Gonna
it.
go
But
and
it's
sit.
exactly what
But-
they... I mean, they're just talking about themselves, aren't they, really?
Well,
Harry
it's-
and Meghan.
it's
That's
their
exactly what
truth.
they did. It's their truth.
Yeah.
They gave up their duty because they didn't fancy it anymore. It
bring them
wasn't
joy.
good for their
Because
hearts.
they've got bucket loads of money. That's why they don't have to work.
They just wanted more money.
Why? You know what? What should happen to them actually? What they should do is get rid all the people that work for them, the people that do the nannying and the cooking and the cleaning and the driving, and all the people that they employ should all quit. And then they'd have to actually do something.
Well, it doesn't sound like Meghan brought many of her employees much joy.
It doesn't really, does it?
doesn't.
of course,
Very good point.
She does deny the bullying claims, and apparently there's a big document coming out soon, which is going to.
Is it one that she forgot that she owned? Or
Well, I don't know if she's still writing it, but she's refuting all of the allegations that are made against her and saying it's all a
Okay.
plot, horrible plot.
you say
by-
these are the different allegations
by the
to the
media.
ones about having briefed about the book that she
Oh
forgot.
yeah, these are different. These are the bullying
Different ones.
allegations.
Oh, okay.
You know, because so many people only work for her for a short time and then have to leave because it's unbearable. Anyway, who's your second plank?
Okay, my second plank is Andy Street. Now,
Yes.
he is the mayor
Good name.
of the West Midlands. And this is where the name is very appropriate because Andy Street... Now, we all know how brilliant mayors are, right? They bring so much
Yeah,
joy.
thank goodness.
They're not an extra layer of politics that
No.
you just don't need and admin
Definitely
and
not.
absolute rubbish.
No.
Well, Andy Street has now just hired... Andy has now just hired a cycling and walking commissioner.
Well, everybody
for
wants one.
The West.
Everybody
Midlands.
needs a
not
cycling
a czar.
and walking commissioner, just for sure.
Yeah, because, you know, we all need to learn how to walk and cycle. Now,
Yeah.
I would like to apply for this job
Okay.
because it's knocking on, apparently, reportedly,
Yes.
not be able to verify this, but apparently 90 grand
Not
a
bad.
year, 85,000, something along
Right.
those lines.
Plus as many pairs of trainers as you can wear.
And lauded by everyone who ever gets on a bicycle.
You get a free bike.
And essentially, this is the qualifications for the job. You have to ban cars, hate them,
Yes.
ruin junctions, build cycle lanes, create congestion
Yeah.
absolutely
Right.
everywhere,
Make the pollution a lot worse.
make poorer people have a much harder time with their lives, and hey, presto, you get the job.
Yes.
It's it. That's it.
What about
I
low
think
traffic
that's a
neighbourhoods?
Low traffic neighbourhood.
Yeah.
Now,
Planters.
We've got a lot of rubbish here on Talk Radio, a lot of hassle, shall we say, from some listeners who have said,
Sorry, I
look,
thought you said
Right.
something else there.
no, as in not
You know,
rubbish, as in
it's a bit
Those other presenters,
those other presenters got a lot of rubbish.
I think that's a bit unfair. Most of them are pretty good.
those commentators.
I am the plan. No, but we've got some hassle from listeners saying, look, you go on about these London cycle lanes, London low traffic
Yeah.
neighbourhoods. Of course, we found out as well that London is now suffering some of the worst congestion in Europe
Yes,
as a
I'm
result
sure that's
of
right.
all of these cycle lanes as well.
Yeah.
One of the big traffic data companies has now come out with this. But a lot of listeners get in touch and they say, you know what, why are you going on about London? And I hate to say I told you so, but I said at the time, all of these other cities, you know, we've got it
They've done
there
it
in
in Glasgow
Yorkshire,
now.
Glasgow, they're all looking at London, rubbing their hands with glee at what we're doing here because they know they can get away with creating the congestion,
Yeah.
which means they can tax motorists to solve it.
Now, my second plank is a place that I've never heard of until now called South College in Durham, where Rod Liddle recently spoke and apparently upset quite a lot of the students. And some of them walked out. Now, people have made the argument, well, he's entitled to say what he wants. They're entitled to walk out. That's fair enough. Tim Luckhurst, though, who we know and we've had on this show, not this show, but we've had him on Talk Radio quite a bit. He's a sort of lecturer in journalism. He's now professor. He's now the principal of Durham South College. He stood up for Rod Liddle and said that he defended having him there, defended the right for him to say what he wanted to say. So he's now been suspended as the principal because he defended Rod Liddle.
Yeah, that is outrageous.
Yeah, that's
which is absolutely mad.
Challenge Rod Liddle.
He basically said that the woke students were pathetic for walking out instead of challenging Rod Liddle, instead of arguing with him or showing some other form of their displeasure. But because he called them ridiculous and pathetic, he's been suspended, right? Students wrote to Durham's Vice-Chancellor Academy, Rod Liddle made transphobic, sexist, racist and classist remarks.
Sounds like a great speech.
Obviously, they've never read his column because that's what he does all the time.
No, but whenever this sort of thing happens with Rod Liddle, because he's not really on social media.
No.
He's not on Twitter.
No.
The same people dig up the same columns from 20 years ago.
And they were doing that yesterday, weren't they? And they were doing that yesterday.
And then get offended all over again.
I mean...
So funny.
Professor Luckhurst has emailed students to apologise for his conduct because he was sorry for calling them pathetic.
He's given in to the mob, which is exactly what you don't do.
But he's not allowed to speak to anybody about the controversy, apparently. So
he's not allowed to speak to Talk Radio, for example?
He's not allowed to talk to anyone. He's been basically told to shut up.
But the thing is...
By some students, by some
Well, no,
students.
by the college. I mean, he's the principal of the
them.
college, but because of the students at the college, it's all gone backwards.
I don't understand why. Right, you may... Some of those articles, some of those columns that are dug out, you might look at them and think, well, don't really much like what Rod Liddle's had to say about that. The point is, if you're a student and you're trying to learn, well, then go along and challenge him. Tell him you think he's wrong. He can take it. Tell him why you think he's an absolute moron, a fool, you don't like what he's got to say. But storming out just makes them look like 5-year-olds.
I know. And apparently they shouted racist and disgusting at him.
It's probably because they're not as clever as they think they are, these students. They're too scared to actually argue. They can argue, first principle, and then they lose it.
1,000 students signed an open letter in which they complained that they felt distressed and emotional after his speech.
So, since when were students so pathetic and oversensitive?
Careful, calling him pathetic gets you banned from this place.
Things that are more offensive when you just switch on the TV or God knows what they watch on their apps.
I don't remember a day recently I haven't felt distressed and emotional. I wouldn't leave the house if I was one of them.
Exactly. I mean, I've been quite emotional lately as well, but I mean, I don't write any letters about it and complain to people. Why am I so emotional?
It's just my life.
Following the backlash, Professor Luckhurst emailed students, right? He said, I responded to their decision by reminding the students that South College is committed to the defence of free speech. When they did not return to their seats, I called their walkout pathetic. My anger reflected my sincere commitment to freedom of speech. However, I was wrong to describe the students' action as pathetic, and I apologise unreservedly.
Well, that's a little tiny bit contradictory. I'm really into free speech. I protect free speech. By the way, I was wrong to say something.
I shouldn't have said
using my free speech.
What's the wrong with calling someone pathetic?
Yeah, pathetic.
And someone who's your teacher. Pardon?
I'm calling you pathetic.
Yeah, and I'm very upset, and I'm going to write an open letter.
You need a safe space.
And get some of the Foo fans to come on board with me instead of you.
Get Zarah Sultana's safe space.
Yeah.
you need to be admitted.
See, I don't think she'd afford me a safe space.
No.
She'd
be scared of you.
She'd chuck me out with a safe space.
Professor Luckhurst added that Rod Liddle's topic was tolerance. I mean, I couldn't make this stuff up. He spoke about the importance of listening to alternative perspectives. He attacked nobody.
But it was like that guy who got chucked out for doing a Nazi impression in a debate about bad taste.
Yeah.
It was the whole point of it.
It's like they don't understand irony, do they?
No.
They don't see it.
Was that the guy with the Nazi dog?
They use it as a weapon.
No, he was in Scotland.
They use these emotional
It wasn't
words.
actually a Nazi dog.
It's just a weapon for them to use against their professors.
Not as far as we know, anyway.
It's just a political weapon that they use. They
But I
say
mean,
we're
I'm
upset.
so
They don't
glad.
actually mean it.
I'm so
They're not
glad.
upset.
I was talking to my kids actually this week. We went out and had some lunch, and I was talking to them about university and whether they want to go and all that sort of thing. And I really feel sorry for them because imagine going to one of these places and actually having to sit and listen to these people in an environment when I went to university, it wasn't like that at all. It was very, very different.
Yeah.
We had fun. We got drunk. We met people, we did things. At one point, I think we occupied the Vice-Chancellor's office, just for the hell of it. We went on
Not
marches.
For a cause. Not for the climate change.
To be a socialist now. I was never a socialist at university.
Well, I formed the Young Conservative Society
Did you?
when I was there because I was so fed up with everything being left-wing. But then I grabbed hold of the newspaper as well, so I could spout my vile bile all over the place.
Ooh, can we get hold of some of those?
You probably can. I might have some.
There's a movie in that.
Yeah.
Young Mike.
Can you imagine your write-ups of the
Well, I turned it into a tabloid.
University
When I moved to the university, it was like a little private eye style book, sort of, that sort of size, and I turned it into a tabloid and just used to attack the student union all the time.
Did you have various students on page 3 as well in frisky poses?
Didn't quite go that far, no, but thank you for thinking that. No, it was slightly more highbrow than that.
Oh.
It was more sort of Daily Mail than Red Top.
So not much more highbrow.
Daily Mail's very highbrow.
Oh, right.
Rod Liddle writes for them.
best paper out there.
Occasionally. Anyway, you're number 3.
I'm number 3.
Yeah.
And who was my number 3? It's another university or someone working at a university.
It's something sort of posh, isn't it?
Universities are very overrepresented in Planks of the Week.
Well, we haven't had one on for a while.
Okay, well, this is an
Have we got another one now?
academic.
Right.
I'm not going to say her name because, I don't want people to go after her. But she's an academic at the University of Roehampton. I'm not sure how...
There is no University of Roehampton. That's the other problem. You mean Roehampton
so this is all fake
Polytechnic?
news. I'm spreading fake news.
No, because they've all called themselves universities now, so they can charge $9,000 a year to go and learn how to do something there. But what the hell would you go to the University of Roehampton
Yeah, it's
for?
definitely an old polytechnic.
I
But they
went
should
to
have
an old
stuck with what it did
polytechnic,
well.
by the
That's
way.
fine. There's nothing wrong with
This is the
polytechnics. but
problem. They should have stuck with what they did well rather than try to do every single course out there badly.
If you're suggesting that my degree in public relations is not
Public
valid,
relations.
then I will.
I can't believe you have a degree in public relations where you bang on about stuff. You obviously didn't learn anything.
Degree in public
Did you go
relations.
to any of the
What's wrong with
lectures?
that? No, in my 3rd year, I was asked if I was new. Like, when did you join the course?
Yeah, one of my lecturers at university was once very puzzled to see me twice in the same week in the library. He's like, what's going on? Anyway,
Go on.
that's enough reminiscing.
Anyway, she's deeply concerned about Shakespeare.
Aren't we all?
Shakespeare's plays.
Yes.
Because they have scenes in them that show non-consensual sex or non-consensual
sex.
Non-consensual
Yes.
sex and relations. For example, A Midsummer's Night's Dream.
I see. I don't know it well enough, I'm afraid.
Henry V, I think, were her examples. And she's deeply concerned by this.
I didn't know there was any non-consensual sex in Richard III, is there?
Well, apparently so.
Okay.
Or hints at it.
Okay.
Or something that is offensive. Anyway,
Well, there's a
she
bit of
said,
killing, which is quite offensive.
she said that this could trigger the actors who are performing it, and it could trigger the audiences. So therefore, they need to have workshops on sexual ethics before they either perform or watch Shakespeare.
Presumably,
Dear God.
the actors would have read it before they perform it, therefore knowing the content.
I love
mean,
what they say now as well, when certain scenes might be problematic. That's the new word, isn't it?
Problematic.
Because funnily enough, by complete coincidence, just before the show started, I saw a story about Christmas movies, believe it or not, which are now in the firing line. Because apparently, Love Actually rewards toxic men.
Oh.
Does it?
Yeah. Bridget Jones is archaic, champions sexual harassment.
I love Bridget Jones.
Everybody does. And Jack Black apparently is a dangerous sociopath in The Holiday.
Is he?
Well, I don't think I know The Holiday terribly well.
No. But I did watch Trading Places the other day, one of my
Oh,
favourite
yeah, it's a great film.
Christmas movies
Yeah.
ever. And I pressed the info button just to see what
no.
it was about. And all it
Triggered.
says, the only thing it says about it, doesn't describe anything else about the movie other than this movie contains outdated attitudes and sexual imagery, which some may find offensive.
He said
That's
that before Trading Places?
Only description, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because I
Blimey.
think that there are certain racial slurs in there, and you see Jamie Lee Curtis's breasts as well.
Well, that's not terribly traumatic, is it?
Well, it was for me.
Was it? Oh, dear. I don't know.
I don't know.
it's ridiculous
Who
that
are
that's the
these
only
sensitive
description.
people? I mean,
Well, there are obviously these people it can become emotional when you start saying certain things to them.
but I don't think they do. I don't think they do. I mean, children as young as 11 are watching, pornos on their phones. They're hardly going to be
Yeah, they're not.
distraught
They're
by
also
watching
they're not.
Shakespeare.
Yeah.
You probably won't even understand it.
They're also not going to be watching Trading Places either, because it's so old. I mean, even my kids who are teenagers are going.
That is one of the best Christmas movies.
I
of all
love
time.
Trading
in
Places.
fairness, Dan Aykroyd does dress up. It's a hilarious scene as a Rasta in a train carriage. Do you remember to try?
Yeah,
And it's ridiculous, but it's so absurd.
The Haile Selassie Pavilion.
Yeah, and yes, and it's ridiculous.
What's the
It's so
but it is,
absurd.
of course it is. Well, she dresses up as a sort of Swedish,
yeah.
whatever. I don't
And
know.
you're laughing at them. You're
Tiller
not
girl or
laughing.
something.
All of those. Her name is Helga from Sweden.
Yeah.
And or Olga or Helga, I can't remember. But the whole point is, and
there's a
actors
gorilla.
return to that point that a gorilla gets violated or violates another.
Well, we don't have to go too far into
No,
it.
the
You might
gorilla
upset some
violates
people.
another gorilla. Well, a man dressed as a gorilla. I mean, that's quite offensive. I don't know if they talk about that.
No.
Why wouldn't actors know what's in Shakespeare? Of course they would. They would have read it themselves. So that's so ridiculous to suggest that, because it's like they're reading it for the first time on stage and then they realise that there might be something a bit rapey.
Also, the suggestion that they need to learn about sexual ethics.
Actors.
I mean, maybe they do.
But
maybe she's right.
Yeah, but I think
Name me an actor that's ever done anything sexually inappropriate.
Yeah, okay, maybe she's right. Maybe she's right. She's not Plank. She's Hero of the Week.
Yeah,
all right.
but she is still in the University of Roehampton, so let's keep her in the plank.
enough.
In the plank. The trouble is, without naming her, we can't make her a plank, though. You need to give us her name.
I don't know her name. You're going to have to Google it for
All right,
me.
I'll have
We
to
call her
Google
Jane Doe.
Jane Doe from Roehampton.
Jane Roe.
Jane Roe. We'll call her Jane Roe.
Roehampton.
Yeah.
Get it? So have you got a third one?
I do have a third one. Look, it's the baby-making bozo buffoon who is our Prime Minister. And this week, rather than making babies, which he loves to do, got very powerful sperm. Have you ever seen the movie Alien, where like the acid burns through, like the blood of the alien burns through to the floor below? That's Boris's sperm. It's how powerful it is.
Why are you talking to me about this?
I don't know. I'm addressing
Because
you
I'm a
both.
woman.
Yes, I'm being very sexist. I'll talk to you about sperm instead. If you want. Boris has got very, very powerful sperm.
Has he?
And this week he took a break from showing the power of his seed to bring us drugs legislation that he is introducing.
Right. So the first part of that sentence is actually completely pointless and meaningless and
I'm
irrelevant.
just saying what I think of Boris Johnson.
All right,
part of
that's
why
fine.
he's a
We'll
plank.
probably
Not
edit that
only
out
does he-
now. All right,
Don't
so
edit that out.
the drug laws that you
Do you
bring
want me
in.
to start that bit again?
No, it's fine.
All right.
The drug laws that he's bringing in
Boris
will
Johnson
not
is
work.
bringing in ridiculous drug laws.
Yeah.
He was dressed as a policeman, looking like an absolute moron because he seems to think that fancy dress is in some way going to make his policies more credible. He has said, and imagine this, you're a middle-class cokehead, and the fact that you might be sent on some sort of course is going to stop you shoving gack up your nose every single weekend. What an absolute load of rubbish.
Yes.
Besides which, if he was going to bring in stricter drug laws for middle-class people, wouldn't he have to fire half his cabinet?
Well, that's
quite.
possibly libelous. I don't know who in the cabinet you'd be referring to there. Because
Well,
that
Joe
would be,
said he had.
Gove said he has.
Well, he had. That's
He
not
has,
the
in the
same.
past, yes.
Yeah. But that's different, isn't it?
Why?
Because people are allowed a new beginning. I can't believe I'm having to referee this nonsense.
Oh, get off your high horse.
Charabanc of legal
Why have you
nightmares.
gotten so woke?
I haven't gone woke. I just believe in telling the truth at all times.
I'm coming more around to the idea that we just decriminalise the lot.
Yeah.
Well, do you know?
Then we'll
that's-
have no criminals.
Yeah, there's certainly an argument for that. I mean, you might as well decriminalise it because the fact is the drugs are so far in every single part of society that there isn't really any point in trying to pretend that anybody can stop them.
Well, exactly. And think of all the tax.
But again, it's just, well, that's the other thing. I mean, in America, I keep asking people, in America, most states in America have legalised marijuana, for sure.
Yeah.
And they're making a fortune on tax because they tax, the sale of it, they tax the growing of it. And so far, as far as I can tell, the crime hasn't gone anywhere particularly worse than it was. The crime rates are still the
Well, they
same.
expect perhaps a little bump in the crime, and then eventually it does start to go down. In Portugal, in places like that,
Yeah.
where they've decriminalised, the crime is going down. But it's just, it's just all.
But it's just more grandstanding, isn't it? It's the same as the migrants issue, right?
Yeah.
We're going to stop it. And you go, OK, and then nothing happens. And then next month, we're going to stop it. Right, OK,
By
and then
spending
nothing
20 grand
happens.
on Domino's.
He honestly
Yeah.
thinks that sticking on a high vis and a bobble hat is going to make us take him more seriously doing that.
But it's obviously
Get
not worked
back
in your case,
to
is it?
baby making, which is what he is best at.
Well, you say that, and I can't really argue with that, but it does sound.
No, there is evidence to back
Yeah.
up that claim.
Exactly, because he's very powerful in that department. I'm not
Thank
going
you,
to
Mr.
say
Keep
why.
saying. Anyway,
Stop saying that.
I'm going to go with my third one, which doesn't have any of those kind of connotations attached to it. It's the Foreign Office, who are on the front page of many newspapers today because nobody works there anymore. Basically, they all work from home. I mean, it's called the Foreign Office. You think there are two things there. One word, office. That's where you go to work. Foreign, other countries that you deal with while you're in the office, right? It's not difficult. But there was apparently only one guy there during the whole Afghanistan crisis who was answering all the emails, trying to organise all the airlifts, and everybody else was refusing to come in on the grounds that they didn't want to do any overtime and they didn't fancy travelling on the train.
That is unbelievable.
So I
Can
think
you imagine
every
that
single
poor guy as well running around.
Well, he's now become the whistleblower of the whole show, right? And he's telling everybody how hopeless it was, but he couldn't get anybody to do anything.
Yeah, but they were saying...
And they had hundreds of thousands of emails from people begging to be saved.
And I was like, okay, we're laughing at how ridiculous that is, but people were actually murdered.
Yeah,
And Dominic Raab was saying, just mark them all as red.
That's unbelievable.
Huh? It's incredible, isn't it?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but they were saying, this whistleblower says that there is, and obviously we can believe this, there was a rigid 8-hour-a-day work-life balance mandate or culture. So even those who may have wanted to, work around the clock, it was probably quite difficult for them to do so.
Well, you've got to be in the office first.
Disloyal by those people
Exactly.
who want to stick to the 8 hours. I bet they all got their lunch break.
There is a lot of that. There is a lot of
bet
that.
they got their lunch break as well.
Yeah.
Well, of course, everybody who works from home says that it's much better working from home. Well, it might be
is.
better for them, but it's not better for anybody else.
I love watching loose women.
Yeah, I'm sure. But this guy said, you imagine going into one of these great departments of state in the Foreign Office. Funny enough, I walked past it yesterday. It's a beautiful building. I've been in there, and it's lovely. And it's, sort of cavernous, and it's got all these friezes and things, and beautiful pillars and paintings, and literally nobody in there.
Turn it into flats.
That's always your answer for everything, isn't it?
Turn it into flats.
So that you can rent more flats to more people and make even more money, buy even more Gucci loafers. Raphael, have you never heard the Gucci loaf? Are they not?
No.
No, M&S?
A company called Common Projects.
Really?
Yeah.
How expensive are they?
I'm not going to say how much my footwear
That sounds
costs.
like that sounds like
Outrageous.
they're probably expensive.
Yeah, look, I'm
outrageous.
seeing the shoes now. Look, there we are.
Little white sneakers.
Little white sneakers.
Little
Not
Christo-
very-
trainers.
Without wishing to give anything away about Cristo, he has very odd-shaped feet.
I do have very odd-shaped feet. I do actually have a disorder. My feet are very odd-shaped.
Are they very wide?
Very wide
Yeah,
feet.
and sort of square.
And quite square, yeah.
You know those Lego figures?
Yeah.
They-
Yeah, I know.
a bit like that.
Yeah, it used to be
Why
called-
have you seen his feet?
He showed them to me.
I was called, they're like hobbit feet.
Yeah.
That's what they're called, like hobbit feet.
Yeah.
They're sort of, or Fred Flintstone. My nickname at university was Fred Flintstone because of what they look like. Yeah.
Anyway, this guy's
sound like
name's
you've come to terms with it.
This guy's name's Raphael Marshall. He said soldiers were drafted in to do jobs on desks inside the Foreign Office. I mean, it's a complete
Fire
shambles.
them all.
And
Fire
also,
them all.
but you know what else is going on here? Every single government department will be exactly the same. There'll be nobody in the Home Office. We already know there's nobody in DVLA. You ever tried to get anything out of the DVLA lately? They say it's about 5 months to get a new driving license.
That's because they were all just at home.
They're all
watching
at home.
loose women.
They're all at home.
I think you've got two types of people in the civil service. You've got those who are hardworking, and
Sorry?
then you've got the rest.
I don't think there's many who are
No, but
hard
No,
That's
they
knocked
leave
out
after
of
a
them.
few years because
But
they get fed up with how slow everything is.
Or it's knocked out of them. They are institutionalized.
Yeah.
They are radicalized into thinking that work is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Or
It's
it's
like
just
the way,
like if
but it's
Joe
like
next
that it's
door
one of
isn't
the
working
few
hard.
remaining places where unions are still quite powerful as well, because the public service unions, the public sector unions, are quite good at
Thatcher
making
never
sure
got
that
to them.
nothing ever gets changed. And I remember in the old days of newspaper unions, I once went in. I was working for the Mail on Sunday, doing a couple of shifts there. And I went in to photocopy the style book, which is all the stuff that you need to know to sub-edit stories and all that, their style and everything. And I went in and I got to within about a foot of the photocopying machine. This voice said, "Oi, get away from that." As if it was like some kind of thing dangerous, right? And this guy was sitting behind me with his feet up, and he was in charge of photocopying.
So you had to hand it
So I had
to
to
him.
give it to him. And I said,
Job creation.
"Okay then, well, would you mind doing it now?" He said, "What? You can't speak to me like that." I said, "Well, I sort of need it for the, I'll do it when I'm
for
ready.
my job.
I'll do it when I'm ready." And I'm like, "Okay then." And I walked out and sort of sat down and I said to somebody, I said, "Who's that guy in there?" "Oh, he's the photocopying guy." And I'm like,
That's unbelievable.
How long do you think he'll be? He said, "Don't know, a couple of hours."
He'll be on strike now. You know
And I
that,
mean,
don't you? He'll
it's
be on strike.
unbelievable. Well, we don't have them anymore because, the business got rid of them all. But it's unbelievable, just ridiculous. And that's, I think, imagine what the Foreign Office is like. You go and photocopy something, they go, no, you can't do that.
Photocopying
Put it
man.
in that pile.
Listen, I need to
Put it in
reply
that
to
pile.
this email. Someone's about to die. Sorry, that's actually my job, and I'll
Yes.
get to it next week.
Yeah, I'm currently got another 5,000 emails to open before I talk
But
to
this
the
family
foreign-
are going to be
Yeah,
killed.
I know.
No.
Unbelievable. Right, well, listen, we're going to carry one over as well, and I'm going to carry over the BBC this week, I think.
Oh.
Just for no particular reason, but just because it's hopeless and useless, and it just gets worse every single week.
There's nothing
Well,
particular.
actually, you could put them in for falling over. The transmitter at Radio 4 fell over, which was actually quite good for us.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of people came across and started listening to
Oh, yeah.
radio.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, you'd think an organisation as powerful and as rich as the BBC would not have to go off air because of some technical problem, but they did.
need a transmitter or something, wouldn't
Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you would
I
think
mean,
they'd
it's
have
not
one.
really my area.
They have a house for broadcasting, don't they?
Well, you would
You
think.
would think that they would
There's a
broadcast.
cast of thousands there.
All right, we can shove them in then.
I think we'll just.
I don't know,
shove
it's
it
up
as
to
the
you,
10th.
it's not up to
well,
me.
Well, that's right. Thank you for acknowledging.
I know.
This
I would always
well,
acknowledge.
that's the 10th one. So now we have to whittle it down, right?
Oh, okay.
So let's find out who's going to win Blank of the Week. Let's decide. Whittle it down from 3 to 1. Remember how this goes. So why don't you pick your favourite Christo Plank nomination?
So I had Sir Jeremy Farrar, who was the guy that said that we've squandered all of our progress on COVID based on nothing that's ever happened yet. Andy Street, who of course has now hired a cycling commissioner for some reason, and Boris Johnson in fancy dress.
I think I'm going to go for Andy Street just to make you happy because I know how much the cyclists annoy him.
No, he's never going to stop now.
Oh,
I would have
of course,
actually,
because they
it's
are
not my
taking
choice. I would have
over
gone
the
for the other
road.
guy, Farrar, but never mind, that's okay. So your 3 were?
Zara.
I've got a name, by the way, for you. It is Hayley Backrack.
She's the Roehampton
Yeah,
woman.
that's her.
I'm sorry, what?
She's the Jane Roe.
Backrack and
Hayley,
what?
Hayley Backrack.
Oh.
Shut up.
Okay, so her,
Right.
Zarah Sultana,
Yep.
and the Prince of Planks.
It's got to be the Prince. It's got to be. Prince Harry has to be in the top
Oh, well, I
3.
don't know. Zara is quite ridiculous, though. But all right, we'll go
Well,
for
she's
the
still in
Prince.
the list. I mean, she'll still be in there.
All right.
So now you have to choose one of mine. South College, Durham,
Hmm.
Sajid Javid, or the Foreign Office.
I think I will go for Sajid Javid.
Well, he has ruined a lot of
Yeah,
people's Christmases.
he's ruined your Christmas,
And
Mike.
also, he started off quite well, didn't he, when he was Health Secretary? Now he's kind of gone the other way.
But it just shows how
He's
much
now
you're-
worse than Matt Hancock ever was.
You're going to have to spend Christmas at mine.
Well, you don't celebrate it, do you?
Oh, celebrate
You're a
Christmas.
Satanist. Sorry, no, that's just a joke.
Hero of the week should be Theresa May.
Yes.
Yeah, give
Who
her
knew
a,
she
give her
had
a line
the
of credit
backbone?
then. Why?
Well, she stood up in Parliament and said that we can't behave like this every time there's a variant.
Yeah, she's very good. Why is it that they all get better once they're not in charge of the Tory party anymore? Like Ian Duncan Smith now is brilliant.
Yeah.
But when he was the leader, he was awful.
Something about being in a position of power.
Maybe. And Theresa May's been a lot more sensible since she
Imposter
was...
complex. She didn't feel she deserved the job.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that just your supposition?
That's just my,
Sexist.
same as Ian Duncan Smith. Well, he didn't deserve the job, but
No, but actually he deserves it now. I think Ian Duncan Smith would be a really good Prime Minister now.
well, it's like William Hague as well. We uncorked him too soon.
I know. That's sometimes what can happen. Right, so Andy Street, Sajid Javid and Prince Harry. What say you, Christo?
Well, can I choose my own? I'm not allowed to choose my own, or am I?
No, you can
I'm
choose
gonna
which
go for
one you
Andy
think...
Street. Why are we paying nearly
Okay, here we go.
£90,000
No,
for a
no.
cycling
Here we
and
go.
walking
Stop.
commissioner? It's so ridiculous that we're doing that. And we've done Prince Harry
What do
and
you think
Sajid
of
Javid
cycling?
enough.
What do you think of
I like cycling.
Have you
I
got
think
a
you
bike?
should cycle.
Breathe,
Yes,
Christo.
I cycle.
Have you seen, by the way, this story about people having their bikes nicked in Richmond Park because they're riding around on bikes worth 15 grand?
Yeah.
Well, that's
Ridiculous.
a thing to do, isn't it, really?
What?
You shouldn't have it nicked because of that.
Well, you shouldn't, but what the hell are you doing paying 15,000 quid for a bike?
Buy a car.
It's not up to you, is it? Some people might say, why did you spend £1,000 on that iPad?
Well, because I use it for work.
Some people use their bikes for work. I'm not defending people who do that. I've got a lovely bike that's got disc brakes. It's amazing.
Disc
I use
brakes?
it sometimes. Yeah, disc brakes.
Why?
Because then it can stop more easily.
Right.
In case of
Well, so
any
you don't
problems.
Because you're going so
cars.
fast.
In case anyone, you're going to hit a car or something. It's a brilliant bike,
Okay,
but I
stop
don't
with the bike.
need roads closed
Enough.
in order to ride them.
Dear God. And you can't win it because I'm not having that. Can you nominate
What
somebody
was your
else?
one?
Well, mine was Sajid Javid. It's got to be Sajid Javid or Prince Harry, one of the two.
Well, I think Prince Harry, just because he's the man we love to hate. Well, not hate. I
Well,
don't
also
even
he
hate
makes
him.
it so. I don't
He's just
hate
a
him.
plank.
He's a plank, and the point about plankery is that it's not hateful. We call people planks because they're doing something stupid.
I've been
I
a
mean, is
plank
it
in my
fair to
life.
say
You've
that
been a
he's
plank.
just a plank because he's chief impact officer of any?
Well, that's certainly a good one.
Giving up work, telling
But no,
people who are unhappy
telling people just to
the
quit
Marie
work.
Antoinette moment.
Yeah.
It really was, and I think he doesn't. I mean, every single week, just when you don't have to say anything, but every week they come out with something idiotic.
Yes.
You know, and that's why at the moment, as we prepare to film, sorry, I shouldn't really tell you this. We're going to film Plank of the Year next week.
Right, when do you need me?
No, but you're not in it.
I'm sorry?
We can't do as many. We can't do as many people this year.
What do you mean I'm not in it?
We can't.
So what day do you need me?
I can't. Well, at the moment, we'll have to put you on the first alternate list.
So what day do you need me? Sorry, 14th? Is that you doing that? When is it?
Guess what,
I can't tell you
Krista?
the date. It's a secret.
Guess what, Christo?
She's
you
in
on it?
She's on it. Yeah.
I'm on it.
Why didn't you tell me at the end of this? I wouldn't have done this had I known that.
Yeah. Well, that's why I didn't tell you. Well, I think it's Prince Harry then, right?
Yeah.
Don't you? Should we make him really annoyed and make Sajid Javid number 2 and then give him number 3 with Andy Street? What do you think? I think that's fair. It's a good nomination, but the obsession with cycling has taken it down a peg. So I think Andy Street 3rd, Sajid Javid 2nd. But Plank of the Week this week, once again, the champion, he is going to win probably Plank of the Year, Prince Harry. Well done. Thank you to Emily. Thank you to Cristo.
Yeah.
Don't hold any grudges, please. We'll see you next time.